talking the generically named Separation. This one is directed by William Brent Bell and stars Rupert Friend, who you may know as Hitman Agent 47. So this is a kind of haunting ghost story, and it focuses on this family. So we have the father, played by Rupert Friend, and him and his wife are pretty much at the end of their relationship. But we just kind of catch this as they are kind of splitting up. They have this young daughter, and the beginning of the movie is setting up this kind of conflict between the parents, where they are vying for, you know, custody of the child ultimately. Rupert Friend's character is somewhat of an unemployed artist, whilst the wife is, you know, comes from a quite wealthy background, so she's kind of set up to be somewhat antagonistic and ultimately the one likely to get the child. But she's tragically killed by a seemingly kind of freak accident towards the beginning of the movie, and then since then there seems to be some type of ghostly presence that seems to take the form a lot of the times of these characters and the kind of the sketches that the Rupert Friend's character, he's an artist, a comic book artist, is creating. What'll happen? Well, you're going to have to watch the movie to find out. So let's discuss what works first of all in Separation. Certainly not the name. That isn't going to come up on many search results, let me tell you. But I will say it is a competently made horror film. It feels like, very much like it's, and this could be a negative and a positive, I suppose. It feels like it's a movie spat out by committee to be a perfectly fine and watchable kind of horror film, never kind of straying too far from the standard kind of generic path of a haunted house movie, you know, showing you exactly what you are expecting to see, jump scares, you know, dream sequences that you think are real and then suddenly they wake up, you know, ghosts crawling around, things like this. They're all there, with a kind of a polished sheen and a Hollywood-esque style approach to how our characters are interacting with the supernatural. So, you know, it feels very much like a by the numbers kind of horror movie. And that might sound like I'm being, it's a negative, but I think it's certainly like one of those films where you know exactly what you're going to get. There's plenty of them, and I don't think this is necessarily a bad example of that. It's just kind of more of the same. It does feel polished. It does feel like it has a reasonable production value. You've also got Brian Cox as a supporting actor, who's obviously very, very good in pretty much everything he does, really. And he has a reasonable kind of screen time here. It's not just a one and done cameo. There are some pretty good designs in regard to these kind of apparitions that we'll see. And there's a couple. We'll see a couple of different things that happen within the movie. And I've got to say, I think I like the idea of them. I don't think the execution was quite as good as it could have been, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But I think nonetheless, using these kind of Tim Burton-esque kind of like cartoon creations that Rupert Friend's character has created as his, you know, as a comic book character, having them kind of come to life and be these kind of like weird kind of like puppet people. I think, like, on paper, it seems pretty scary, and the design is good. And I gotta say, I think Rupert Friend does a pretty good job, and I also like the young actress who plays his daughter. I thought she was really sweet, and you always kind of felt like she was in danger at some, you know, throughout the movie because of whatever she was doing. I kind of quite liked it. And it's like I've said, it has a kind of like Hollywood sheen to it, so it feels well produced. Okay, what doesn't work? It's just a standard generic horror film, like I've said, that doesn't stray too far from the path of any other kind of like ghost story. It's more of the same. So it works in as both a positive and a negative. There are things here that just annoy me generally about these kind of cookie cutter style horror films. Like, for example, people's reactions to when they see the supernatural. I actually did a list of 10 things cliches that I hate about horror films, and it's, you know, a lot of them were things that I haven't seen on another list. And this is one of them, is where you see something which is clearly supernatural and people either barely react or don't react and then kind of just go kind of with their life, back to their life as normal. And my thing is, look at prank videos, you know, look at how people act in real life when they are scared. That is how people act, and it really bugs me that we kind of don't get those reactions in kind of like movies. It never rings true to me. And that is the case with this film. It's just kind of like silliness. We have characters clearly experience paranormal things, clearly seeing, you know, ghostly figures and stuff, yet they barely react. It just bugs me. And it's just that typical kind of like very kind of basic kind of horror movie cliche. There's plenty of unnecessary jump scares, and then we have, oh, you know, we see a sequence and it's a dream, things like that. Again, all the old cliches. There is an attempt at a twist within this movie, but with a character reveal. But to me, it really wasn't a twist because, you know, we were introduced to a character who doesn't seem to add anything to the movie, but they are there they have a lot of screen time. I mean, why is this person getting so much screen time? They're setting it up for something later on, for them to have more of a, an integral part in the movie. It's so obvious because they have this reveal. It's like, oh, what a surprise, because this character had nothing to do in the film until now, so it doesn't become as any surprise. It really wasn't, the lead really wasn't buried. The other thing is as well, as much as I kind of like the ghostly designs here, it was strangely uncreepy. You know, on paper, I mean, when you see still shots of this movie, they look pretty horrifying, but this movie really fails to have any sense of like creepiness or dread. I mean, when you look at the designs for, I think, the creatures and the kind of the ghostly apparitions that you see, they can look pretty horrifying. But for strangely, the movie really fails to have much of an atmosphere, I feel. It doesn't really present these apparitions as particularly kind of scary in the way that they're filmed, in the kind of like the use of lighting and cinematography and kind of just the anticipation of and how they act and stuff. And I think, again, partly it's how people seem to be so non-reactive to it. So ultimately, this film is as I've said, a cookie-cutter Hollywood-style ghost story. It is bang on average. It doesn't, it's certainly watchable. It's just like a by committee horror film, and it's fine to watch, as a kind of forgettable but kind of somewhat kind of competently made a movie. But it's so generic, it's so vanilla. It can't rise at anything other than an average film. So I will give it a 5 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.